Hey guys, so today I'll be talking about infrared sensors, also known as IR sensors, how they work and how to set them up, and after I'll also show you a little demo. So first of all, how they work. As you can see here, I have a diagram of the IR sensor. So basically how it works is it has these two LED looking things, one of them being the IR emitter and the other being the receiver. So how it works is the IR emitter will emit an infrared light signal. So infrared meaning beyond the visible light spectrum. So you won't be able to see that this is emitting any light. And that light will hopefully hit an object or obstacle and be reflected back and received by this receiver. And so that's basically how this IR sensor works. It emits a light, and based on whether or not the light hits an object or obstacle and gets reflected back into the receiver, it will turn on or off, or send out a voltage signal based on whether or not this receiver is receiving anything. So as you can see, the out pin will be sending out voltages based on if an object is detected. So for example, as we all know, how we would apply this, right, is if we had, for example, a black surface and a white surface. As we all know by intuition, black will absorb light and white will reflect light. And so if we were to have like a white surface here, for example, then the IR emitter would be able to emit this signal and have it reflected back and received by the receiver. And so this IR sensor would output a high voltage. But if this object or obstacle were black, then the light signal that is emitted won't be reflected back into this receiver. It'll just be absorbed by the black object. And so that's how we could use this sensor to differentiate between black and white surfaces. And why this is useful is, as we can see here, I'm on the official SumoBot website. As we can see here, this is the ring that your SumoBot will be fighting in. Okay, and as you can see, the inside of the ring is black and the border is white. Okay, so of course you don't want your SumoBot to exit the ring. That'll cause your team to lose. So you want your SumoBot to be fighting only within this black area. Okay, so we're going to be using our IR sensor. We're going to be leveraging this IR sensor to detect whether or not, if it detects white, okay, then it will send a high signal, and then perform a series of actions so that it doesn't exit the ring, right? So that's basically a high-level overview of this IR sensor. And as you can see, this is how we're going to connect it. I'm going to go over that later after I go over this code. So basically this is generally how you set up the code for the IR sensor. If we look at the first line, there's a mistake here. You don't want this equal sign, you don't want this semicolon here. Just remove those. I'll remove those from the code later, just for your information. But basically how it works is we want to define the pin that our IR sensor will be connected into. As we can see, the IR sensor has 3 pins coming out of it. 2 of those pins will be used to power it. So that's VCC and ground. VCC will be going to 5 volts, so you'll be providing 5 volts to the sensor. And then ground will just be ground to complete the circuit. And then out is the actual signal pin. So as you can see, it's connected to D2. So the second digital pin on the Arduino Nano. So that's why we're defining it as 2 here. Okay, and in the next line, we're going to be defining a variable called sensor value. So this sensor value can be either 0 or 1, or high or low. So we're just going to define it as 0 for now. Alright, and moving on to the void setup. Basically, you want to be defining whether or not the pin that the IR sensor is connected to is an input or an output. So in this case, we're going to be labeling it as an input because the IR sensor is a sensor, right? So it will be detecting whether or not a surface is black or white, and based on that information, it's going to be giving that information to your Arduino Nano. So it will be defined as an input. And then here we're just going to want to begin serial communications so that we can see what the IR sensor is doing. Now this code is posted, by the way, under the resources in the Discord, so you can just copy it for yourself. And in the loop, basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be reading the value of the IR sensor, so 0 or 1, and then assigning that to the sensor value variable, which is 0 for now, and it will be a 0 or 1 based on what the IR sensor reads. And then we're going to simply want to print the sensor value in the serial communication so that we can see what this IR sensor is doing. And then based on what the IR sensor sees, you can use a series of if statements to make your bot act accordingly. Alright, so as you can see here, I have a little simulation running in Tinkercad, but basically how it works is I have, like I mentioned already in the slides, basically there's just these 3 pins. You connect them, you connect the VCC and ground to the power and the ground, and then the output pin to any digital pin of your choice. So I have an Arduino here. I know you guys, most of you guys have an Arduino Nano, but the wiring is going to go the same. I have this output pin connected to my digital pin 8 on my Arduino Nano, and then I have my 5 volts and ground connected to the respective pins on the Arduino Nano. And as you can see, here's my code. I've changed a few things. As you can see, I've removed these redundant if statements because there's just comments in here, nothing's running, and I've also added a delay so that this is running at a reasonable rate. And by the way, this is what I was talking about with the mistake. So there shouldn't be an equal sign here, and there should be no semicolon here. So if you guys see this in your code, just remove it. It should just be #define IR sensor and then 8, and then that should just be it. Okay, or any pin of your choice, of course. Alright, so I'm just gonna run the simulation and open the serial monitor right here. And as you can see, the IR sensor is reading a value of 1, so that means it's detecting a white surface. So yeah, and this simulation is kind of bad because I can't really take an object and put it in front of the IR sensor to like block it or whatever and make it 0, so it's just always reading 1, so that's kind of annoying. But yeah, this is just a high-level overview of how this IR sensor works. And yeah, I'm going to be moving on to the code, and I have my IR sensor in front of me physically, and I'm going to be running the exact same code here as the one here. So I'm going to plug in my Arduino, and I have my IR sensor hooked up to pin 8. Again, just delete these, and there we go. That's how you write the line correctly. So I have my IR sensor hooked up to pin 8. I'm going to plug in my Arduino. Alright, let's run it, or upload it to my Arduino Nano, or Arduino Uno, whatever. Alright, and as you can see, my IR sensor is working. So right now, it's reading a value of 0. That means it's on a black surface. And if I put a reflective surface in front of it, there we go. As we can see in the serial monitor right down here, as you can see, the sensor is reading a value of 1. So that means that the white LED that is emitting the infrared light signal is being reflected back and received by that black looking LED. Alright, and if I remove it, there we go. Now it's not detecting any kind of reflection, right? So it'd be a black surface. Alright, and just a side note, this is optional to watch, you don't have to, but I just want to go a bit more in depth on how this sensor basically works. So imagine right now, like as you can see from this kind of blurry picture I found on Google, as you can see, the light is emitting a light signal, and then it's being reflected back from this yellow object, right? But what if this yellow object wasn't there? So let me plug in my IR sensor. Alright, right now I have my IR sensor facing the sky, okay? So there's nothing in front of the IR sensor. So this IR sensor is just going to emit a light signal, right? And there's going to be nothing there. Nothing's going to be reflected back. So it's going to be reading 0, right? And by the same token, if I were to bring an object super close to the sensor, right? Let's say I have a black object, right? I bring it really close to the sensor, right? Now, theoretically, the IR sensor should still be returning a value of 0, right? Because black is not a reflective color, right? But if, depending on the material, if you bring it super close, right? Let's say you shine a flashlight at, like, you know, something black, right? You'll still be able to see some reflection of the light of the flashlight coming back, right? So just because the object is black doesn't mean that it will absorb 100% of the light, right? So the distance between the IR sensor and the object will matter, right? Even though it's completely black. Now you can test this on different kind of materials. I know the ring for the Sumo Bot battle, I know this black is quite absorbent, right? So even though you position the IR sensor really close to this black, like, it will still return zeros, right? If you're testing the IR sensor at home, for example, you might realize that for some objects, for some black objects, your IR sensor might be returning a 1, even though the object is black, right? So again, the distance and how much the object will reflect light really matters. So just something to keep in mind. Throughout my testing, a distance of about maybe like 1/4 of a centimeter to like 1 centimeter is good for the IR sensor. Again, it entirely depends on the type of material. Some blacks are, you know, more reflective than others, so just something to keep in mind. Distance will matter, and also the reflectivity of the object will matter as well. Alright, and that's all for the IR sensor. Again, this code will be, it is posted in the Discord. Just go to the Discord, go under resources, and then it should be right here in the programming resource drive. Just go to the drive, and then there's sample codes for each sensor, so you'd be interested in this one right here. And again, like I said, make sure to change this thing. Okay, make sure the semicolon right here and the space are not there. Just change that, because this is just the proper syntax. So yeah, hopefully this video helped.